Okay, now I'm going to begin to assemble my card, but I'm going to need a little bit of ribbon. Well, I wanted to use some of the twill, the Gina K Designs 5/8 of an inch twill, but white really just doesn't coordinate with this. So what I thought I would do is I would colorize this piece of ribbon using that same coffee bean ink and some of the tea dye ink. And let me show you how I'm going to do this. I'm going to take the ink pad directly and just rub it right across that white twill. And you'll notice that that gives it almost a little bit of a purpley hue, yet you can still see a lot of the white coming through. Okay, now to remove some of that white, that's where my tea dye comes in. I'm going to rub some tea dye ink all over that, and that will soak into the twill a little bit since this is a bit of a wetter ink, and that will take away some of the whiteness in the background and make it a little bit more ivory. Can you see how much more ivory that looks? This is a great way to colorize ribbon. And for this particular card, since it is a little bit more of a masculine design, I like the way the twill almost looks like a little strip of wood because of all that texture in there. And that makes it even a little bit more masculine. Okay, it's time to assemble the card. So normally you would let this dry for a couple of minutes, but I've already made one that's already dry and ready to be applied to my card. So I'm going to get ready to do that, and I'm going to apply this piece onto a piece of, I want it to look a little bit more aged and ivory like my focal image. So what I'm going to do with that is take a little bit of tea dye ink, and I don't have to do the whole thing because most of it is going to be covered by that piece of mango cardstock. So I'm just going to go around the edges and just highlight the edges a little bit with some of this tea dye ink. And it's interesting because when you see this all come together, you would think it looks a little bit blotchy or maybe not so, not so smooth like you're used to seeing your layers, but it really gives a nice look. And it just takes a little bit. It's nice, you can colorize your cardstock to match anything you want. Okay. So now when I put my mango cardstock on top, look how pretty that looks. Isn't that beautiful? Okay, and I'm going to apply that to my card using some Glue Glider Pro. And I'm just going to hold it up so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, there we go. Now that white cardstock doesn't look so stark white, but rather it has a nice aged look to it. Now I'm going to apply my ribbon. Now I wanted to add a decorative element to this piece of ribbon, but I didn't really want to use brads or anything like that. So I grabbed a pop top off of a can of Sprite that was sitting on the counter, and I thought, Copic markers, you can color just about any surface, non-porous or not. So I was just going to color it and make it look like a copper embellishment. So all you have to do is just rub that Copic marker all over the surface of that. And the ink will feel a little bit sticky, and then eventually it will dry. So if you ever lose your mojo and you need a project, grab all the pop tops off of the cans in the recycle bin and color up a bunch of different ones to put away for a time when you're really in the mood to make cards, but you're not in the mood to color embellishments. Okay. And it looks a little bit blotchy, which I really like because this card is a little bit more aged and distressed, and that really gives a nice aged looking embellishment. Now you will need to let that dry a little bit, so I already did one that's already dry and ready to go. So I'm going to feed this twill ribbon through one side and then out the other side. And then spread it all out so it looks exactly the way I want it before I attach it to the card. There we go. And I can slide it down a little bit because I do want it more towards the edge. And then I'm going to apply that ribbon the way I always do, with a little bit of Glue Glider Pro just on the back. Make sure that's in place. And come on the front. Make sure it's nice and straight. And there is my cute little pop top embellishment. Now this card, this piece is ready to be matted onto some chocolate brown cardstock. I'm going to do that for you right now. And there we go. And then I'm going to apply the whole piece right on top there, and you can move this as you need to make it work a little bit better with where you're positioning this. But I'm going to put the whole thing right on top using some of the 1/4 inch pop dots. And I'll use 4 of those. And if you want to use more, you want to put a couple extras, you certainly can, but I found that 4 on a piece this size is just plenty. And then remove the little covers and pop it right onto my card. Okay. And now this whole piece is going to be placed on top of a chocolate brown card base. Again, using some of the glue glider. And I'll be adding a little bit of glue glider right onto that ribbon area. Same on that side. To make sure it all sticks down. And I'm going to apply that right to my card base. There we go. For my greeting, I used one of the little greetings from the Enjoy the Sunshine Stamp TV set from the kit, and it says, "May the wind be ever at your back." And because I stamped it on white and I want it aged like the rest of my card, I'm going to do the same thing by taking some of that tea dye ink and just rubbing it all over the surface of my greeting. There we go. Then I've cut a small little piece of chocolate brown cardstock to mat it on. Let me get that lined up just perfectly. And for this piece, I'm actually only going to use 1 pop dot, because you can see that if I try to stick it straight onto the card, it's going to stick up on this side, and if I try to stick it just to this, there's going to be nothing holding it on there. So to balance it out, I'll put a pop dot just on this one side, and I'll use glue glider on the other, and that will give it more balance. Line that up on the corner, and there we have the finished card. The Scor-Buddy can create elegant frames and backgrounds in minutes, and by adding your own colorized ribbon and pop tops, you can create a masculine card like this one in minutes.